Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat with Coach Binish and Mehvish. Today's topic is parenting with purpose. So let me start with discussing how huge of an honor it is to be a parent. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has chosen you to be a parent of a child or children, giving a responsibility of another human being. And like with any other honor or privilege comes huge responsibility and accountability. So, when we receive any privilege from God, we need to remember that it's going to bring a lot of responsibility and accountability. And we need to come into this relationship of marriage, which is an institution, keeping all that in mind, because when we enter into this institution of marriage, as a result, we agree to take up on many challenges in bringing a child into this world, and taking care of them. Raising them is another one of those challenges we have to face as a result of a marriage. When two people coming together, we do have kids, right? So generally what we see that's practiced in our societies is more of a discussion towards the parents, parents' rights, parents, how to treat parents, and how you need to be with your parents, and a lot of pressure put on the children. And I'm not undermining the honor and respect of parents in our lives, how it should be. But today we are going to discuss the other side. Today we're going to discuss how parents should be with the kids, because as human beings, we do have some duties towards our children. And because we are responsible and accountable, we need to really keep all this in mind, that, on the day of judgment, when we are standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're not ashamed or embarrassed or short on how we fulfilled our duties towards our children. Because how I look at it is, children are under our care, under our protection, and they can't speak up for a lot of reasons, right? Either they're too young to speak, or they don't understand, or they just outright, in respect for you, they just don't speak up. So there are so many reasons why being a child puts you in a very vulnerable position, where you cannot speak up for your rights, for something that's going wrong, something they would like to do, something they would want to do. And that is why it is even more important as a parent to be mindful of all these things, how you're treating your child, how you are raising them. And we can't really complain for something we have not worked for. So what I'm trying to say here is, if later in life, at age of 15, 16 and plus, your child is not loving you and respecting you, you got to think about what you did or didn't do to earn that respect. And everything, yes, we have to earn it. We cannot just claim honor and respect just because we gave birth to a child. Allah has given you that, but that does not mean we use that against our children and abuse our rights, right? We do have a huge responsibility and duties towards our children as well. And it's very, very important that we are aware of those before we bring a child into this world. So it starts really early, and inshallah, what we are hoping to with our discussion is that we understand how soon it needs to start as a child. You are raising a child to be a future spouse and a future parent themselves, right? And it's very understandable that your parenting style is influenced by maybe your childhood or the way you were raised and things like that. But if there were something wrong, you got to break the cycle. You got to be the one breaking the cycle and bringing the change. So apart from the basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing, a child one of their rights upon us is to provide them emotional security, a safe space, being cared for, feeling loved and feeling cared for, and a strong sense of belonging. And once this child has their emotional needs are met along with their physical needs, when they're met in a very proportionate and healthy manner, these children then grow up to be amazing individuals and they do great things in the society. And that's what the kind of people we want to raise. Now, if for some reason I wasn't raised that way, I need to think about it and work on myself. And that is what we're going to discuss in our talk today, that how important it is for us to work on ourselves as parents before expecting a child to be perfect. What do you think, Navish?
For sure, it does definitely start with you in terms of breaking the cycle, in terms of kind of gaining an understanding of how your parent kind of parented too. So it kind of goes back to what we talked about last week about self-exploration, self-identity, kind of gaining an understanding of who am I, and then working through those hurts and traumas. Because something that happens is parenting is hard enough. It comes with its own set of stressors, and it becomes harder if you have some unresolved hurt or trauma that can create emotional triggers. And basically, what emotional triggers are, it's a behavior or situation that elicits a very strong negative response, and it's often due to a lot of emotional stress. And these feelings can include feelings such as anxiety, high anxiety, guilt, a lot of anger, sadness, irritability, which kind of also lead to shame, because after kind of having this emotional response, this emotional trigger, um, you are going to maybe feel guilty about how you reacted to that situation, and also kind of be a little confused like what happened. And the emotion trigger is usually connected to something that happened in your past. It could be something that your child is doing that is kind of exhibiting a behavior that kind of reminds you of something negative that happened in your childhood.
Mhm.
And some ways you can kind of recognize it is when that in that situation your heart rate is really high, when you're feeling a lot of anxiety, when you are kind of, what do you call it, trembling almost, and just having a reaction that was kind of not equal to the situation, not equal to the behavior. Your reaction was almost irrational at that point. So that's the kind of the strong reaction that you have to it. And kind of give you an example is, let's say in our culture and society, we are told to be obedient to our parents, to do what they ask us to do. So if you have, let's say, a child who is not doing what you want them to do, who is actually back talking to you, who is not listening to you at all, you could have a really strong reaction to that. You could hit the child, let's say, or yell at them or ask them to go to their room instead of trying to understand where they are coming from,
Mhm.
and also understand, kind of explore where your reaction is coming from. So those are basically emotional triggers. And kind of a way to help yourself is to arm yourself with tools, gain an understanding and self-awareness of why that happened, and then what you can do to prevent it. So if you know that your child, let's say you wake up in the morning and you set aside as an outfit for your child to wear, and the child then says, no, I'm not going to wear it, and you really are rushing out the door. To prevent that situation, you can either, you and your child can sit down and decide an outfit for the next day,
Mhm.
or wake up your child earlier to prevent it. So basically, when you know what is wrong, you can figure out what to do about it, how to solve that.
So let's discuss more of this child's behavior. This is a rebellious child. A parent would be like, they don't listen to me. They just want to do what they want to do, and even if it's a very young child. I mean, I've seen kids being like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds wanting to dress the way they want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there are ways to handle that situation. But what is that child trying to do when I look at the situation as the child in itself is also a human being as a
Mhm.
personality, they want that emotional independency,
Mhm.
or that physical independency, that they want to be able to choose their own outfit. And of course, we're not gonna leave an open door so they can choose everything at that
It's
age.
an
They're too
option.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some limit to that, but choosing an outfit, that's a very harmless thing, which
Yeah.
they should be allowed to choose, as long as they are following some guidelines, of course, based on your culture, your faith, whatever, you know. So for example, when my daughter was really young, I would dress her with tights on, any dress or frocks, with tights on. And I would let her choose whatever she wanted, as long as it's going with this outfit. This is the setup. Okay, come bring anything you want to bring within this guidelines, and then go ahead, go crazy.
Yeah.
And that is really, really important for the development of their own personality, and knowing who they are, and being confident in their own decisions. That's a decision making
Yeah.
ability. And
They're
we
taking an
cannot
initiative.
shut it down. You can't, as a parent, you cannot shut it down, because you are going to be very, very destructive towards that person. So we need to understand that a child is a person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even when basically when a child is born, the child doesn't feel that they are separate from their mom. When they hit the age 3 and become a toddler, that's when they're like, I want to do everything on my own, even though
Hmm.
they know how to do it. They get
Hmm.
frustrated, and and it's hard enough parenting when you especially have a lot on your plate. Like, for example, in the morning they want to pour the cereal themselves, and
Yeah,
they're going to make a mess,
it's a mess.
but you
Yeah.
kind of have to let them pour the cereal themselves, because that's how you're going to learn. And that's also something you're teaching them with that action, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's
Hmm.
okay for you to make a mess, and
Hmm.
just hand them a
And
tissue.
then
You will love.
clean up afterwards. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
Or
they
and make your decision. You can choose. You can attempt. You can try new things. You can be confident. You can be independent, and that's the kind of person you want to raise. Independent person. And that's when, when they're going to grow up to be go out in the world, they're going to be less likely to be fooled by someone, or to be missed by someone,
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
So yeah, so all these things, we're really talking about a very young age right now, and this
mhm.
is very important, because that is where everything is starting from. So
That's
for you.
basically the foundation. What kind of attachment and behavior that has been modeled by the parent.
Mhm, mhm,
It really does come down to that. Like, it's the foundation.
mhm.
Parents are creating
Exactly.
the foundation, and you're
Definitely.
basically giving your child those building blocks to
Mhm,
create their own self identity, their own self motivation, and self esteem.
mhm.
And especially up until age 5, there is so much development happening, especially when I think between from age 1 to 2, every month it's you're hitting a milestone, they're hitting a milestone. So the parent really has to be involved a lot more with the child at that time, and it really sets them up for life. It truly does. Like, for example, like, they did this like study, and they found out different kinds of attachments that children have to their parents, and how from that kind of attachment they derived what kind of adults they will grow into. And there are basically different 4 different types of attachment that children can have towards their parent. And the first one being the secure attachment, which is the goal. That's your goal. You want your child to feel secure in your presence. And I don't
Mhm,
mean, so it's not that the parent has to be with the child 24/7. It's when you are with your child, when you're taking your child to the park, when you're sitting down and reading, you are with them 100%. You are giving them all your attention, and you're listening to them, and you are basically fulfilling their emotional needs.
mhm,
And the secure attachment, what they found is when the parent was available, when the parent was responsive and accepting of the behavior and sensitive to the child's need, they found out that the child then was more brave about leaving the parent and exploring new options.
yeah.
They more sensitive to others. And they actually found that these childs then were more helpful and kinder to others
Yes.
because they felt that they were in touch with their emotions basically also.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think that, yeah.
mhm,
Sorry. So I think that makes the feeling of knowing that your parent has your back. They're there.
right,
They're not helicoptering on you, but they're there. And that is such a secure feeling for any person. I mean, at any age, seriously. I mean, it's very important. Even I want to feel that way. I have my family on my back
yeah,
as a support. So that really gives that child a sense of security, that at that after that point I can go in the world and do anything, and I
yeah,
take up any challenge and
yeah.
do
And
anything. Yeah.
that's what happens. These child then grow up and they have a lot more healthy relationship. They're more intelligent when it comes to their emotions.
Hmm.
They're more effective at communication and just healthy emotionally
Yeah.
and physically, and
Yeah.
have really good relationships. So that's basically the goal. That's
Hmm.
the ideal of the secure attachment is where it should be.
That's healthy independent person.
And
Yeah.
what I found really interesting was how then they have three other attachments that are insecure attachments, and how it's how the parent reacts to the kid in that stage of life. And you can kind of see this when you go to a playground. Is so the second one is anxious, ambivalent, insecure attachment. It's when the parent is inconsistent in providing response or care. And the child then tends to be clingy.
It's okay.
Yeah. Mama, I need something from the refrigerator. What do you need, Jenna? Yes. Wait a second. Sorry.
All right, so we're back from the parenting break.
Parenting break.
Yeah. All right, let's
Okay.
continue.
So we were talking about anxious, ambivalent, insecure attachment, and basically it's a parent who is inconsistent, and so the child, and then in turn is clingy. It's they needy, and they're also slightly distrustful. Basically, it is because they're unsure if they turn around, and let's say on a playground, if they go on the slides, they're worried that the parent might not be there
Mhm.
because they haven't been consistently provided that care and have their emotional needs fulfilled.
Mhm.
And these kids then, when they have a tantrum, they take a long time to calm down,
Mhm.
and they don't want to explore. They're basically just worried about their care provider, their stone rock, basically not being there when they turn around.
Yeah.
So
So
they tend to be,
something might have happened in that child's life to feel that way. Why are they not feeling secure? Is it the parent who are um okay, so when you say their needs not being met,
Mhm.
I want you to clarify that we're not talking about babying your children. We're not
Oh,
talking about always being there, because there's
mhm.
going to be time you're not going to be there.
Yeah, no,
So
no, no, no.
how do you develop that emotional independency while feeling secure that, yeah, my mom's around, my
Balance
dad's
it out.
around
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't have to constantly see them all the time. I know they're there and they're going to come whenever I need them. So this is something you have to tell the child. You have to model that behavior. You have to be present when they actually need you, and help them when they need your help, but also let them do the things on their own. Give them that confidence that, yes, they are going to
Yeah.
be okay, even with the parent not being around,
Hmm.
physically being around. Yeah.
So basically, these childs, when I say that their needs have not been met, is basically that, let's say when they were crying, they were left alone to cry on their own and basically figure out a way to self-soothe.
Hmm.
Or let's say they wanted to play with their parent and the parent just ignored them and said that not right now. And of course, that happens. It happens. We are
It's
all
the
busy.
frequency. It's the
It's the
frequency.
frequency of it. If you're, I'm not saying it's not possible for us, we're humans too. It's not
Hmm.
possible for us to be always be for our kids like
Mhm.
100% of the time. But we try to get the 90% of the time, or even explain to the child like,
Mhm.
I need to get this done right now. I'll come back and play with you in a few minutes or
Yeah.
something. So
Then
that,
follow through, when you tell them that,
yeah,
okay, I'm
yes.
gonna come and play with you next, in a few hours or
And
in a
that's
few minutes,
that's
they
another
do
thing.
that. You have to follow through.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you're telling your child that you're going to do something and you don't follow up, you don't keep your promises, they're
Mhm.
going to start kind of catching up that,
Mhm.
because then it kind of gives them a feeling of, is she going to, or is she not going to,
Yeah.
right? They
Mhm.
don't feel secure that my mom or dad said that they're going to take me to the park. They're always in that state of anxiety of,
Mhm.
she said she will, but is she really going to?
Mhm. Mhm.
So those small things add up, especially for a
Mhm.
child whose whole world is that house, is the parents.
Yeah.
So anything that any kind of behavior that the parent is expressing towards the child, it for them it's very important. And the funny thing is that when they grow up, these tendencies grow up, and they tend to be adults who are demanding or
Yeah.
possessive,
Yeah.
or they tend to be co-dependent or someone
Yeah.
completely,
Yeah.
and they also tend to second guess themselves quite a bit because
Mhm.
they didn't have that sense of security as a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm. I think that's another thing, as a parent we need to be mindful of, to how do we give that confidence to our kids.
Mhm.
Of course, follow through, keeping your promises and being true to your word. It's very, very important. Plus, you got to tell your kids that they're going to be okay and not do every single thing for them. Let them
Yeah.
do things, let them make mistakes, give
Yeah.
them this confidence that it's okay, honey, you made a mistake and that's fine. We're going to work on it together. Or, okay, you made a mess, let's clean it up together. That is okay. The times when we lash out, and that the times when we should not lash out, where we discipline them, in the intensity of discipline needs to be different for different reasons,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? So if I keep doing everything for my child, if I go, oh, okay, you cannot tie your shoelaces, let me do it for you. Oh, you cannot pour this, let me do it for you. You cannot, like, I mean, it just happened like a few minutes ago. My son was in, he's 18, by the way, and I feel so like, I mean, what did I taught him? What did I teach you? I was so upset. Like, he wanted to cut watermelon and he's not using the knife the right way. And I'm like, oh my God, this is wrong. You're gonna have to learn how to be around the knives, because and he does a lot of other stuff, but he's not good in the kitchen. He doesn't know his way around the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I think he should be learning now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So um that's what we do. Like, okay, let me do it for you, because you
Yeah.
can't do it. So
Yeah.
this is something you instill in that child's heart, that or mind, that, okay, I can't do things right. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this right. I need my mom to help me. I need my dad
Yeah.
to do this for me. And that's a child who's very, very insecure and low in self-confidence and self-esteem. And they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah, and definitely it's there. And we don't teach our kids, we do it for them. And then we get
Yeah.
annoyed when they're not able to do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like
Exactly.
that that's used to be the case for me. Like you never taught me how to do this. How am I supposed to know how to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's like, oh, because after a certain age, the expectation is there that, oh, you should know how to do this. You
Yeah,
should carry
exactly.
this.
Mm-hmm.
But no one taught me, and no one let me make mistakes and try and keep doing it.
That's
So
exactly how I reacted
basically,
when
the
I,
goal was
yeah.
perfection right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something like the process. You have to be okay with the process. You should be okay with your kids making mistakes, and
Mm-hmm.
your child should know it's okay to make mistakes. And like, you're not going to gain perfection right away. It's like, I used to say this in my classroom, like, it's okay, make your mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you know this is not going to work. Let's try a different way. It's just one way of getting somewhere. We have so many ways of doing it, you know.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
definitely, if a child is comfortable enough to know that, it definitely gives them a sense of high self motivation and self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
That, okay, it didn't work out the first time, but let me try again, instead of just giving up completely.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
does. truly then again comes down to the parent. How did the parent, what kind of language, what kind of attachment the child has towards the parent? That's why those foundational years are so very important.
They are definitely. And, a lot of what parents say or do matters. That's why it all matters so much, because you are shaping a personality, an inner dialogue, that child is going to have for life
Yeah.
with him or her. Is all what's going on in my mind is what my mom has been telling me all my life, or my dad has been telling me all my life, and that becomes your personal belief as well, because
Yeah.
you haven't heard anything else.
Yeah, it is truly a driving force in life, what your parents have taught you, what they have instilled in you. And yeah, and so just to move on to the next one,
Mhm.
the avoidant response is basically a parent who has no response for the child. They are parents who minimize what the child is feeling. They reject their demands. If the child needs something, some kind of help, like they don't help them at all. These children tend to become very self reliant, and they
Okay.
tend to have a persona of, I don't need you. I don't need anyone. I
Yeah.
can do this
Yeah.
myself.
Hmm.
And even though on the surface, it might seem like a good thing, like, oh, this child can make breakfast for himself. This guy can go to the school and take the bus by himself. Internally, a lot is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I
A
agree.
lot
Yeah.
is happening. And I think that's something else. Like sometimes we look at a kid and we go like, oh, look, he's so self-reliant, he's so
Mm.
independent. And
And
we don't
brave, and yeah.
and yeah, and these are kids who will explore, and they're actually not afraid of strangers either. They'll
Hmm.
go ahead and talk to the strangers, and they will not return to the parent. And they and as adults, then they don't commit. They are fearful of relationship.
Yeah, that would be a big reason you can't trust anybody, because
Yes.
when your closest relations
Yeah.
are not trustable,
Yeah.
and you had to survive on your own
Yeah.
100%, there's no feedback, there's no care, there is no support.
Keep a distance. Yeah.
You are the only support for yourself. And
Yeah.
we're human beings, we are social. That's a difference between us and animals, that we need people around us. And
Mhm.
I have no shame in accepting that. Yes, we do need parents, we do need siblings, we do need friends, because
Mhm.
that's how we are created. We long for it, so now our society is going on the other side of being individualists, which is not
Mhm.
normal. It's not
No.
normal. There has to be a balance between being a loner, uh, to somebody who is like into everybody's business all the time. So, there is need to be a good balance. Yeah, we need
Yeah.
people, but there is boundaries. There need to be
Boundaries. Yeah.
healthy boundaries. There's nothing wrong with that.
And it's I think it's so interesting, like these individuals with the avoidant
Mhm.
insecure attachment, basically then, and they're also very dismissive of their own feelings and other people's feelings, because that's what they grew up with. They grew
Mhm.
up with a lot of rejection, so they suppressed everything that they felt.
Do you
And
think they're like overconfident people as well?
hmm,
So they think that they whatever they know, or whatever they, because they have come through a lot,
yeah,
would they be like, because you mentioned that
yeah,
they suppress or dismiss other people's feelings, and
it's
so that's
possible.
probably overconfidence coming from that. I
It could
know
be. Yeah.
what I know is best, or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible. On the surface, I think it's possible, but I think deep down they're just afraid. They're
Yep.
afraid to let people in. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's definitely a persona that they have created, that
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you. I'm self-reliant. I don't need those emotions. I don't need that kind of relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm perfectly fine on my own
So they're overprotective of their feelings and
of
emotions.
themselves, and they are dismissive of their own feelings. And I think these are individuals who deep down are just afraid because they never got that, so they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
and sadly, it's basically because of parents who never really met their emotional needs
Yeah.
or the physical needs. They really
Yeah.
rejected them, minimized them. And I think it's not, it could be also the other way around where they could be, I don't need you, but at the same time be superbly, because they are insecure individuals at the end of the day. They are thinking that I don't need you, but at the same time, they're afraid to make that connection. So they are insecure. They have a persona of
Mhm.
confidence, but they're not.
They
They're,
want it, but they can't do
they
it
don't know how to
because they're
get
so
it.
afraid. Yeah. Hmm.
And
And
they're afraid of rejection also.
yeah.
So it's less self-esteem there. So I don't know if I would say they're overconfident. Maybe in some areas of their life, they're
Hmm.
overconfident.
Or they're
But
acting like they're
prayer, right?
overconfidence is not a good thing, right? And I'm not talking about confidence. It's overconfidence of knowing everything. Like I know everything, or whatever I can do is I do is the right thing. Whatever I think is right, whatever I say is right. Things. These are personalities around us, and I feel like they are not very good spouses
Mm-hmm.
because
I
they are
mean,
so independent and
yeah,
isolated that they
and
cannot be
yeah,
a
and
partner.
yeah, definitely not. Like not very healthy relationship, especially if they're so dismissive, and they might be minimizing the partner's feelings as well.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what they grew up with. That's the relationship they know of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely, that's also part of it. It's really is interesting how
It's so deep.
just
Yeah.
that one relationship
Yep.
rules the whole trajectory
Yes.
of their life, how they make friends, how
Yeah.
they their worldview, the whole worldview and perception of the people around them, and just their personalities does really
Mhm.
does shape it.
I,
So
yeah, I really hope parents realize how important their role is so important in a child's life because they are the ones creating the society.
yeah,
As a mother, as a father, your
yeah,
role, your
yeah, you're
involvement,
bringing up her.
your
Yeah,
treatment to this person, this child who is coming out of you, but you think that you know everything. You really need to learn. You really need to learn psychology. You really need to learn your own psychology first, and then a child's psychology. And then I don't think these are topics or um, educational subjects only for
should be.
professionals. It should be for
Yeah,
everybody.
should be.
We all should know. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one.
So the next one is disorganized. It's another insecure attachment. And basically, in this one, a parent will frighten their child. They will reject or ridicule the child. And of course, then the child is fearful and they have feelings of high anxiety. And they might also be getting physically punished. So they then, of course, become super self-reliant. They don't want anything to do with their child, with their parents. Even when the parent is picking them up to console them, they don't want it. They will kick them and they will just push out of them and they'll ignore the parent. But when the parent is not there, they're just confused. So it's like a love-hate relationship with the parent,
Mm-hmm.
where they want the parent, but when the parent is there, they don't want anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's so they're confused about
Yeah,
what's
it's
happening. Just
taking me to, it's interesting. It's so interesting. It's taking me to a future relationship of codependency in which a person is looking for rejections, actually. That kind of satisfies them. Getting that serious reaction from your spouse or your partner
mhm,
just it soothes you because that's how you grew up. It's so
right.
unhealthy. Yeah. It's so
Like
toxic.
you want your partner to love you, you want that, but you also need constant validation that your partner is there with you. Like it's very hard for them to trust that relationship.
Validation along with that. Validation is like I think in the second attachment style would also require validation. And validation is can be
Also,
healthy or unhealthy, if it's
mhm,
too much if you too much wanting the validation or the approval, looking for approval. But the rejection, where I'm going towards and trying to understand that the rejection attachment is something that because I've been rejected all my life through my parent, has been punished me, has been yelled at, they've been yelling at me. That is such a big part of my life that I want to continue living that, because that's my comfort zone. So when someone else does it to you, you don't look at it as something wrong.
Mhm.
So because this is what happens, all our relationship with parents transfers into our spousal relationships as well. So we think that, okay, our parental relationship, or what my treatment or dealing with the parent or child was, stays there. No, it continues to the next relationship in your life, and that's how you will have um, that's the connection you will have with anybody in life. Even with friends, if somebody is rejecting you or mistreating you, you are not going to think, your mind's not going to go there, oh, okay, that's something um, not appropriate, that's something wrong, and I should stop that or discontinue that relationship, something like
No, that's true because that's what you have grown up seeing. So it definitely carries into all your future relationships where you think it's normal, you think it's healthy. And unless someone is sitting down telling you, or you start talking to yourself,
that. Hmm.
listening to your responses and your reaction, because sometimes what happens is even though our brain doesn't know, our kind of gut it, like just that feeling of discomfort, like this is not right. Yeah, and with that insecure attachment, they also found that the adult tends to have issues self-regulating. So these could be basically personalities that have they're addictive. They're not able to, it could be something related to food, it could be related to something else. And they tend to have kind of, they're not able to self-regulate basically because they never taught that skill.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
So they would
yeah.
look always at the other person, you know,
Mhm.
how your mood is, how what your facial expressions are, how you are feeling towards me, and that's how I will feel as
Yeah,
well. If you're
yeah,
upset with me, I will be upset with myself that I did something wrong.
that's true.
If you are happy, then I will be like, okay, I did something good, then you're happy. Always dependent on the other person.
Yeah,
Don't have that independent identity or relationship with themselves.
yeah, they're always in a state of anxiety of um because that's how their childhood has been. They're always in a state of anxiety, like, okay, if mom is angry, and they learn to become very sensitive to it. So let's say if they know that if mom is banging the doors shut and mom is angry and there might be an outburst, so they start getting sensitive to it, and that would carries over in the adulthood where they're like, okay, are you angry, or what's going to happen next? They're very sensitive to other person's emotions and they're very afraid of what that's going to mean for them. And of course, for some people, that's how it's going to go. For some people, it's going to be like, I don't care. Or they
Mhm.
might do it themselves. They might carry on that cycle and be that person as well, where they are always in a high emotion where the other person kind of has to tiptoe around them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough place to be.
It definitely is. And And that's why it's so important
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
parents to kind of have an understanding that I think sometimes what happens is that parents think that a child forgets. They think
Yeah. No.
that, oh, if they grow up, they're going to forget about it. Or if we are not going to talk about it, the child is not going to feel it or think it or just going to forget it. And many times the
Mhm.
child might forget, but it's always unconsciously
Yeah.
there.
No, I remember things from when I was 3 years old or 4 years old. Yeah, I remember some things, and sadly, what happens is that you remember the sad parts more than the happier parts. Um, but then also depends on the intensity or the frequency of those incidents. If the sad parts are more, of course, you're going to remember those more.
Yeah.
And yeah, if a child is always talking about, oh, you didn't do this for me or didn't do that for me, well, when you did, then you got to confront them too. And that's another episode,
That's a
inshallah, we're
different
going to
thing.
talk about it later. But there has to be a good balance of when you discipline a child, and I don't want to say punishment, because
Yeah.
consequences, consequences of their action. That's the real world. So when you discipline a child with the consequence of their action, then you also provide love and hugs and talks about what happened and what are your expectations and what might be their expectations. Have that open communication with your child. And I
Yeah.
think at the time now, in the world right now, there is the only way to go about. You can't be like, okay, I'm your mom, I'm your dad, just love
And
me and
that's
respect
it.
me.
Yeah.
That's it.
It
That's
goes.
not it. We gotta be their first friends, and we have to be the ones they can come up to and talk about anything, literally anything.
Yeah.
Um,
And you also have to have an understanding of where they are in their developmentally, where they are,
yeah.
because sometimes you could have very high expectation of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, and they
Mhm,
just don't have the capacity to
mhm,
do it. So you have to also have that understanding. I think sometimes what happens is, especially if you have more than one kid, you start leaning harder on the elder child and
mhm.
keep telling the elder child that, oh, you're older, even though that elder child is probably just 4.
Yeah, yeah,
You have to also kind of keep in mind that they just cannot do it.
yeah,
They don't
yeah.
have the capacity. It's not that they don't want to do it, it's just
No,
they just can't.
yeah. They can't do your job for
Yeah.
others.
And
Yeah,
that's
really
another thing.
can't.
I think it's a I don't think it's a cultural thing. It's just everyone does it. That when you have a second child, you tend to lean on a little harder on the first one. That
Yeah.
just because they're older, they should be more understanding. They sometimes should also be able to take care of the child for a few
Mhm.
minutes. I don't know. It's just
I mean, if your
respect.
oldest is about like 14 or 15 or something,
Yeah, that's
that's a
different.
different
Yeah,
expectation. That's when they should be supporting you,
helping out.
yeah.
Then yes, they should be doing household chores and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But like a 4 or 5 year old, I mean, reasonable expectations for what they can do for themselves and for you, even, reasonable expectations.
For sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So basically, just after mentioning all these attachments and all that, like our goal
Mhm,
is, of course, to get them to the secure attachment. That's where we want them to go.
mhm,
And we kind of spoke about it a little bit, but basically, how do we get there? How do we as parents get there? And of course, it starts when they're young kids. I think that's the most important age to get them kind of started, to create an open environment, to to let them know it's okay to make mistakes. Of course, our language, and I think that's another huge thing is how you talk to them
mhm,
and how you compliment them. I think that's a praise is it's they thrive on it. They want their parent to approve of what they're doing.
mhm,
It's very, very important to them. So how you praise them is also very important in kind of a building block towards their self-esteem. So for example, like if you are praising them, let's say, so you have to praise. So there's this one more interesting thing I found. So I found a study that they did in 2013. And basically what they found is if you're praising the child's action and not the process,
mhm,
if you're only praising the action, that child tends to have low self esteem. If you're praising the process of how
mhm.
they got there, they actually tend to have higher self esteem.
Yeah.
Because if you're telling a child, you are so smart, you got A on your exam, you are so smart. That's their goal. You did this, you're smart. Now, the child fails a test. The thought process is, I am not smart
Mhm,
and
mhm.
my parents are going to be unhappy with me. And then he has a sense of low self-esteem and high anxiety. But if you, let's say a child comes to you with a drawing and you says, I noticed how hard you were working on mixing those colors. And I love how you were working so hard and using your markers, even though the first time you got it wrong, just praising the process.
Process.
did this and this and this, and now you got there. The goal is not important. It's how they got there.
Yeah, the result. Yeah, yeah.
Basing that. So the next time if the child is not able to do it, if let's say they just scrabble the whole page
Scribble,
and
yeah.
mess it up, and they're like, okay, let me try again.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last time I did this, I got praised because I tried so hard to do it this way. And my parents were happy and they praised me for this. So let me try doing this. And what happens is after a while, the child, and also another statement that we always tell our kids, it's like, I am so proud of you. I think we should also switch that up sometimes with you should be proud of yourself that you did this, because then
Mm-hmm.
it has an inner dialogue of not, they're not seeking outside validation. They have that validation and the compliment inside of them. Their strength is coming from inside of them. They don't need anyone to come up and tell them that you can do this. They have it inside of them. So it's really interesting how a parent's language and how a parent is complimenting any adults, honestly, teachers, any adult, important adults in a
Mm-hmm.
child's life is
Mm-hmm.
using praise towards them, is giving them that attention and kind of bringing up that self-esteem.
Uplifting them, yeah. And I would like to add to that, when you are saying I'm proud of you or you should be proud of, like, finish the sentence with the process. I'm so proud of you for working so hard. Not that you got an A. I'm proud of
Mm-hmm.
you for working hard. And then whatever the result is,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, you know. And I'm proud of you for going through the process, because you have to go through the process to earn whatever.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't go through the process, nothing is going to come so easy.
Yeah.
And that's something we need to teach our kids and ourselves, that we got to work hard. Life is about working hard, and you may or may not achieve your goal whether you work hard or not. But even if you work hard, there's going to be two
Yeah.
results. Either you get your result or not, but you still got to work hard. Not working hard is not an option, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, completing that sentence is so important, that they need to attach, because these are thoughts and memories which we thrive on
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of our lives, basically.
Yeah.
And we need to associate them with the correct associations
Yeah.
and thoughts.
And as parents, I know it, we want our kids to succeed. We want our kids to get A's and be on top. Especially Desi parents, we want our kids to be up there, be the best at everything. And we need to try and understand that our child is trying their best. And
Mhm.
it's okay, and give them that open and safe space where it's okay for them to make mistakes. And also try not to kind of make it about that goal. Make it about your child. Love them for themselves. Advise them, help them. Don't do it for them. Help them, support them. But
Mhm.
don't make it seem like if they don't do this, you're not going to love them. And
Mhm.
the funny thing about is, I think as parents, we assume that our child knows we love them.
Mhm.
That's not always the case. The funny, like, you have to tell them. You have to tell them, no matter what you do, no matter how, if I'm angry with you, if I'm sad with you, I love you. I am your parent and always be with you, and I love you. And it's so important to have that talk with them, to
Mhm.
communicate it with them, because it
Mhm.
shows a few things. It shows that, yes, you love them. Another thing is it's okay to communicate it, to express it. You
Mhm.
should be communicating your emotions to your child, because that child is then going to grow up and be more effective in communicating their emotions. And just don't make the assumption they know. And the funny thing is, like with my daughter, like when I get angry and when I'm done being angry, she'll come up to me. She's like, "Do you love me, Mama? Do you love me, Mama?" And I'm like, "Why are you even asking me that? Of course
Mhm.
I love you. I always love you."
Mhm.
But at that age, when your child think you are their everything, every response is exaggerated for them.
Yeah.
So you need to also exaggerate your love language. You need to
Mhm.
tell them, you need to show them that, yes, I am, no matter what you do,
Yeah.
I will be here for you and
Yeah.
I will love you. And I think it's maybe it's a cultural thing or what, but it's not. I don't recall that. I don't recall my parents coming up to saying, "I love you, I love you."
Never, never.
No,
It,
it's
it is a cultural thing, yet also I think we are not taught to express feelings
yeah,
the right way. Yeah, it's both. Because I see that across the cultures. I see in different
yeah.
parenting styles. I see
It's
in,
assumed.
yeah,
And
yeah. And never, why do we assume that the other person would know that we love them? We got it. I mean, it's a hadith, subhanAllah, that the Prophet ﷺ said that, when you love a brother, go tell them you love them. So why not your child? Why not your parents? Why
yeah,
not your siblings? These are very close relationships, and we gotta tell them, yes, I love
yeah.
you, my brother. I love you, my sister. I
Like
love you, my
hug
child.
them, yeah, physically show it
Yeah,
to them, uh, to communicate it to
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, because as they grow up, it's as they go out into the world, they need it more. I think they need it more when they go out in the world, and then they meet new people, they hear different things about themselves from other people, and they need that support, that kind of
Hmm.
care of we are here for you no
Yeah,
matter what, a
yeah,
lot more.
yeah.
Because when they're going outside, especially when they're going off to school, they're hearing things from their friends, they're hearing things from their teachers, and we have parents have different set of expectations than from them. So it's really important to make for I think it's harder for sometimes for parents to let go, especially when a kid goes off to school. Because when they were at home, you directed or you saw everything, you directed them and you helped them with everything. Now
Yeah.
this child is growing up, and let's say they're becoming teenagers, and they want to do their own thing. You want
Mhm.
them to, I don't know, become pick a certain career, and they're like, nope, I
Yeah.
am going to do this. And
Mhm.
it's hard, because as parents we do care about them. And if they, let's say, they're picking up a career with a lot of uncertainties, even though we might believe in them, it's hard to let them do it, even because we're just worried that what's gonna your future gonna be like. And I think we have to have that understanding that at the end of the day, they are not an extension of ourselves.
Mhm.
They are individuals, and they need to make their own mistakes. They need to go out in the world and figure things out on their own. We cannot protect them
We can't.
all
What's
the
written for them is going to happen.
right.
So,
Even though we would love to put them in a bubble, have them never get hurt, we have to let go, let them be individuals, and let them just trust yourself that if you develop that relationship with them, if they have a secure attachment to you and your spouse. And it's so important. I think that's one another thing is that we keep talking about mothers.
no, both parents. Yeah.
It is so important that both parents have a very strong relationship with their kids, because it's proven. They've done so many studies about how, especially for daughters, if they have strong relationship with their fathers, how they have healthy relationships with their husbands or boyfriends or whatever. They have that kind of relationship, like a very strong relationship, because of how awesome their relationship was with their dad. And it's same thing with the sons.
Yeah, but especially for the girls, it's so important when they have this father, the male figure in their lives, who's a father or a brother, or even whoever is playing the father role in their life is a person who give them confidence and
Mm-hmm.
security. That girl is not gonna fall prey to the outside world,
Mm-hmm.
to the outside men, and she's gonna be able to choose the right person for herself. Because she will know her worth. How important that is, for me to have that strong relationship with my father, or to not fall for any guy who comes and tells me, hey, I
Yeah.
love you. Because that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Inherently, you are looking for a connection. A person, a human being, is looking for connection, and emotional connection is the bigger one.
Yeah.
We always look over it, but that's the biggest thing we are all looking for. And if we are not given that in our young lives, then we go out and look for it, and we fall for the wrong kind of people. We attract the wrong kind of crowd into our lives, because everything looks like a gem.
Mm,
Everything looks beautiful, everything looks real, because it's just a shiny cover on top, and we
mm,
realize much later, when these girls and boys makes mistake and they get into marriage with a wrong person, and then
mhm.
later on they realize they made a big mistake,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's so true. Like if they have that connection with their dad, daughters, that's what they look for in future relationships, because that's what the behavior that has been modeled for them. If
Mhm.
they come from a household where the dad has unhealthy behaviors or relationship with the mom,
With the mom, yeah.
she's going to think this is normal, and this is
Yeah.
what then she
Hmm.
is going to go to works and have that kind of life.
Hmm.
So really
Hmm.
important, I think, especially as you said, for dads, when it comes to daughters, sit down with the daughter and have
Hmm.
that, build that up and talk to them, so that they know that end of the day, if anything happens, their dads have their back.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I would really, really want to request the parents, even if your relationship with each other, both parents, is not going well, please don't mess up the relationship of another parent with the child. So, for
Yes.
example, if you're a wife, you're not getting along with your husband, don't mess their relationship with their father, or the father, don't mess their relationship with the mother. Please don't ever do that. That is just does nothing but being selfish and destroying
And
their
it,
lives.
it really is selfish, because you're putting that child in a position where they have to pick a parent. No
Mhm,
child should be in that position.
mhm,
And it is selfish also because you decided to stay in that marriage
mhm,
for
mhm.
the kids, right? Usually it's for the kids. So
Yeah,
think about the kids.
right.
Don't make them choose between parents. Don't
Yeah.
mess up that relationship with the another person. If you're going to argue in front of them, keep it cordial.
It, it
Keep
needs
it
to, yeah,
cordial.
it does. It needs to be. And there's a healthy way of arguing with your spouse, which your children should see,
Yes.
because fights happen, arguments happen in
Yes.
families and relationships, and but we make up, we get back together. How do we solve the problem? How do we resolve our issues? How do we human beings sit civilized manner and sit together and talk about our problems and solve
And
those
it's
issues,
important. Yeah.
work through them. And
Yes.
that's something that children do need to see.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that, I don't like, I don't agree with the couples who have all their fights and arguments in their bedrooms, closed doors. I mean, if you want to act like animals, okay, do that in the bed, closed behind closed doors.
But yeah, I
But
don't give the
do
impression of,
fight, yeah,
yeah,
do fight in front of the kids too, because
yeah,
that's normal, that's human.
it's normal.
And
And it's such a good learning skill, because it
exactly,
truly is.
yeah,
Because first of all, it's not all rainbows when you get married. It's
yeah,
not all
yeah,
perfection.
don't,
Like my mom and dad never argued. No, they didn't. Everyone does. It's two individuals
exactly.
getting together. Everyone does. It's just how they did it. Did they talk to each other properly and then make up and then just forgot about it and moved on? Like
Yeah.
how, because that's also something you're teaching your kids when you're doing that. When you're giving each other silent treatment, is that your way of resolving conflict? Because that's what the child is going to learn.
Mm-hmm,
Your
exactly.
child is with you 24/7. They are picking up way more than you think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it's definitely building up. Those are the building blocks you're kind of giving them. And don't think or tell yourself that it's not happening. It's happening. If you think that your fights are not affecting the child, it is very deeply affecting the child. It is
mm-hmm,
building their personality and how they view their world. So don't, I think that's like another thing. It's like, oh, this is me between me and my husband. This has nothing to do with you kids. It has everything to do with them. If they're living in the same household, it
it's
is,
going to affect them,
it's
definitely.
going to affect
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And it's really important that you then sit down with the child, depending on their age, that it's okay, mom and dad just had an argument and we're
Mm-hmm.
fine now.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
it's
they
okay.
need to see the balance of, like, okay,
Yeah,
having a fight, but then also becoming friends again and
right.
making things work together.
Yeah.
Also, they need to not see you in a animal phase.
Yeah. Keep it
That I'm
cordial.
gonna, yes.
Yeah.
Plus, you gotta know which one of your child is overly sensitive to your fighting arguments. I don't want to say fighting because we are not fighting, we're arguing.
Yeah.
As normal civilized human beings, we argue, and arguments are evident. You can't avoid them.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen in every relationship. But you need to know which one of your kids is overly sensitive, so you can have that talk. The talk you just mentioned, you can have the talk with them one-on-one. Hey, calm down, it's okay. Parents are also human beings. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to have fights, just like you fight with your brothers or sisters. Just like you guys have arguments among each other, we can also have arguments. But all what matters is that how we come back together. We all have to come back together as a family in the end. And that really, really makes a huge difference if you do that in your family. And you can do that if the argument happened in front of everybody. That resolving also needs to happen in front of everybody. That if you mistreated your spouse and you have to apologize, you did that in front of everybody, you got to apologize in front of everybody as well. So you need to display that model as parents, as spouses, because that's what going to determine their relationship as spouses in future. That's what marriage is going to look like for them in future. And I'm telling you, I've seen so many dysfunctional marriages just because that's how I've seen my parents do this. I've seen my mom did this. I've seen my dad. That's what I know what marriage is. And sadly, I mean, it's not their fault, but yes, at a certain age, you need to be mature enough to learn. You need to be mature enough to pause and think that, hey, this is not wrong. This is not right. And I need to fix this. I need to change this. I need to break the cycle.
Yeah.
You got to be the one breaking the cycle.
For sure. And you made it such a great point about looking at your child and figuring out who is more affected. Basically looking at your children, not comparing them to each other, but looking at them as individuals. Because comparison, definitely you shouldn't be doing that anyways. And every child is different. They see the world differently, even though they're your child. They're in the same environment. It's also about their personality, like how they just are. And you might have to change your parenting styles, but this is like something else. You cannot use the same parenting style on every child.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because there are so many times like, oh, the first one was so good when it came to this and this, and then the second one gives me so much trouble. And another thing is, don't do that to your child in front of everyone. Don't talk negatively about them and embarrass them. It doesn't matter how young they are, how old they are. Don't talk negatively about them in front of everyone, because it is something that is affecting them. And don't compare your child to. So like for me, I used to be compared to my neighbor's kid who was kind of the same age as me, and they were like, oh look, she doesn't this and this and etc., and like, you don't do this and this. So it was so much comparison when I was young. Like, was it like that for you?
It was. I have been compared pretty much all my childhood. But seriously, I mean, that's something you should not be doing with your kids. And there is a healthy way of appreciating someone else's qualities as compared to just keeping your kid and that person side by side, and then, okay, if you do this, or if you be like this person, then only you are going to be acceptable, or then only you're a good kid, and then only you're a good daughter or a good son or a good person even. That's something that we can't do, and that is very destructive for your child. It's gonna bring two things. Either they are gonna strive to make you happy, but they will never be able to achieve that approval and happiness, because you're going to keep doing that. If you are a comparing kind of parent, we are going to keep doing that. Keep bringing some other standard. Your standards are going to keep going up and up and up, and then your child's going to keep striving to reach it. As soon as they reach the standard, your standard's going to go up further, and that's a very, very toxic result to comparison. Or the other way, other negative thing that could happen is the child is going to be like, I don't care whatever, whatever you want to be like. I don't want to be like that person. That's it.
Yeah.
And they're going to shut you up, and you don't want that, So if you have a certain expectation, if you see somebody doing something that's, let's say, okay, your friend's kid studies really hard and gets good grades, you want your child to do the same. You got to pray again, your thing, praise the process. Do it in a way that they don't feel that you are liking that kid and not liking your own child.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be done in a neutral way. You can just clearly say, I would love for you to work hard and get good grades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you don't even need to, you can praise the child separately, but don't then say, like, don't connect the two.
Yeah.
Don't praise the child and then turn around and say, oh, how is your math learning going or whatever. Because
your friend got this much, and how much did you get?
Yeah, don't connect the two. Just don't do it, because it used to be done for me and I hated it. And you're right, there are two things: either you strive for it or you just say I don't want to do it. And I personally, I was like, I don't care. And it's like my parent is never going to be happy, so you know what, I'm not even going to try anymore.
Yeah. And in my case, I kept wanting to please, but I never got that. And that actually became a part of my personality. I became a people pleaser, and that's a painful state to be in. You don't want to be a people pleaser, because then you are never going to be able to please anybody. But yet you're going to keep trying, and facing that disappointment, it makes you feel you become disappointed of yourself, and you have that feeling of not feeling enough. So you got to put a stop to that. You got to make a boundary and say, okay, I am a person on my own. I have my own likings and dislikes, and I can't always please every single person in my life, and that's never going to happen.
And there's this meme I said, and I love it. And it's like, you cannot please everyone. You're not a cupcake. You cannot make everyone happy.
What makes you think a cupcake makes me happy? Huh?
Well, I don't. It depends on the cupcake, I guess.
It is
or
cute.
Chocolate cake. Who knows?
and it's so true. Even though I don't like eating them, it's good to look at them.
Yeah, especially those unicorn cupcakes. Yeah, those are quite fun. Yeah, I mean, it really does come down to yourself as a parent, as an individual, and then how you are presenting yourself and how you're providing that emotional response and support to your child, how you're communicating it. It really comes down to how you're there and how your presence when you're there with your child. Are you there 100%, or are you not meeting their needs? Are you communicating effectively how you love them, how you care for them, and how you're praising them, and also how you're dealing with each other, because their foundation are the parents, both of them, not just the mom, not just the dad. It's both of them as a unit, how you are working with each other as husband and wife. And then also discussing, you should be sitting down with your husband and wife and talking to each other that this and this happened, what should we do about it, what are our parenting styles. You should have had that discussion before marriage, number one.
Yeah.
What are your parenting styles? And I do this with my husband. Like, I would be reading an article and I would sit down and discuss with him, like, if a child does this and this is because the child is doing, this is something like, oh, she's throwing a tantrum, what should we do? This is something I read, let's try it out. So you should be having a discussion where you're educating yourself and you're educating each other, and the main goal is to be sensitive to each other, where you are communicating and you're showing emotions and you are understanding your child as an individual, not as an extension, not as a someone you use to prop up as your award, or fulfill your unfilled wishes, or a gateway to, I don't know, riches or something. But as an individual, that's it. That's how your view should be with your child. You love this person, you want to do the best for them, and you try to love them for themselves. You try to do that. And at the end of the day, a parent is a human. You're going to make mistakes, but it's never too late. It's never too late, and your child it loves you. They are going to forgive you at a time, and you have to just sit down and talk to them. That's all you really got to do.
Yeah. I think a child really, really wants to please the parent, and that is what they're coming from. And all what you need to do or think is not to abuse that need of their child, and give them that. Don't hold it back. Don't hold back emotions. Don't hold
Yeah.
back
You don't
affection.
manipulate your
Yeah,
emotions or their
and deprive
emotions.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would encourage parents to learn. At any age, it's okay. Learn. Learning should never stop. Now at this time, okay, maybe you're married, maybe you have 4 kids, maybe your kids are grown ups. Start working towards having a good relationship. Does not matter where you're at in life right now. You can still start doing something. I know it's going to be different for parents with younger kids. It's going to be easier. You got to catch up now, because that's the best time where you start. Everything starts young. At that time, start working on yourself and learn more about good parenting styles and how you and your actions and reactions are going to affect a child's personality. Learn about all of that. If you have older kids, let's say if you have teenagers, 13, 14, things like that, that's the time where a child is, at least, I'm not going to say they're fully developed, but they have a personality, and they're having this fight within themselves, when they're growing into an adult, but they're still young, you know, they're still a kid, and they're in the middle of it. And that's where they are confused. And they themselves are so confused and disturbed. They're trying to figure things out. You got to be a friend at that time, you know, you got to be a very good friend at the time, very understanding and supportive friend at that time. And after a certain age, about 19, 18, 20 something, they are on their own.
Yeah.
They're on their own. You gotta let them go. I know it's tough. My son just turned 18 and he's going to college this year, and he's moving out as well. So coming from that place, I can tell you that yes, I have to work on letting him go. And I did what I could, prepared him for the life. I'm gonna still be there for him anytime he needs me, but I gotta let him go. And now he's gonna make his own decisions in his own life, and I have to be supportive of that, regardless of how much I feel like, okay, my child is like taken away from me. It's a detachment, and that's a separation anxiety we all feel at
Mhm.
every age, every phase. Whenever our child wants to be independent, a mother, especially mothers, because mothers are more emotionally attached to the child, they feel like this detachment and the separation anxiety we get. But we have to remember that this is the nature, this
Yeah.
is the cycle of nature, and you cannot stop. You cannot
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah.
All you can do is just do your best, inshallah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
send them out to the world.
Yeah, do your best, pray for them, send them out into the world.
Yeah.
And that's your work is done, more or less.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah. As long as you have done your best and you did what you could, and all the parents try to do their best, and nobody intentionally want to destroy their child's life, but unintentionally we hurt them a lot. And that's something we need to be aware of, be mindful of, learn more about it. I would just, again, encourage the parents to learn, and there's no age of learning. There is
Yeah,
no age.
just keep educating, keep an open mind. Listen in when your kids are telling you something, and like with words or without words, because the actions, the tantrums, are all also a kind of a language. So definitely keep
Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah, all those behaviors are symptoms.
Yeah.
They're not against you either.
No.
That's something else
Yeah.
we need to really, when the child overreacts on something, they're not against you, right? Another thing I really want to mention, like for children who are in teens, I see that moms come with a lot of questions and complaints and problems. Like my daughter, and I had to face it myself as well. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and girls tend to pull away at that age. They don't want to do anything with you. They're like, cut, done. I don't want to do anything with you, and they do that. And when I go back to my teenage life, I was the same actually. And that's something you gotta go back in life to remember how you acted in those situations and how you felt in those situations. So I tend to coach parents more than the teenager herself or himself, because as parents or as a family member, you can do so much to make that child feel safe and secure in their household and your relationship with you, that inshallah, that's what they need right now, at that age, a tender age of 13, 14. They're confused. They need your support and understanding, and introduce a neutral adult, trustable adult in their life. It's there's nothing wrong with if they have an aunt who they can confide more in more than you. That's okay. If they could have an older cousin, or an uncle in these kind of relationships, or a friend, a trusted friend, if if you introduce that person in their lives, that person should be able to make your relationship better with your kid. And it happened to me. Like I have been that person for many people's life, and for my kids, well, for my relationship with me and my daughter, my son played that role, and it really helped. It really helped to improve my relationship with my daughter, because we were both able to look at each other's feelings and understand where we are coming from. And when I looked at her side and she looked at my side, and then neutrally, somewhere else, my son's talking to her behind my back, and then we come together. We're friends. We're friends. So you really need to look at a lot of different ways of how to handle things, and be open to innovation, different ideas, different options, different people. Yeah, you may not be the person in your child's life, but you can introduce a good person who can help you improve your relationship with your kids.
Yeah, and that's actually hard to do, isn't it? You're not everything of your child. Your
Yeah,
child
yeah.
really coming to you and telling. That's a great advice, though, for sure, to have that kind of a neutral mediator
Mhm,
who
mhm,
helps both of you kind of build a stronger relationship.
mhm.
Yeah, the
All right.
teenagers are gonna be different.
Every kid, every person is different, and that is what we need to be accepting and open to. Yeah, inshallah. All right. Awesome. Wonderful talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for being there. And I would like to thank all our listeners and followers. Please hit like and share. If you have a question, concern, if you something's bothering you, there's a problem, if an issue you want to talk, let's chat. So we're gonna see you with the next episode. Keep watch, inshallah. Look out for what's coming up next, and we're gonna see you then, right? Take
Yep.
care.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, guys.
Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum.